Poor Charlie's Almanack, expanded 3rd edition. The Wit and Wisdom of Charles T. Munger. Foreword by Warren Buffett. Edited by Peter D. Kaufman. This is a book summary. Warren Buffett once said that if he could be reborn as anyone else, he'd pick Charlie Munger. Not Elon Musk. Not Steve Jobs. Charlie freaking Munger. That's high praise coming from one of the richest men alive. But Charlie's not your average billionaire. He doesn't have a Twitter army. He doesn't sell electric cars. He doesn't chase headlines or post selfies from space. Instead, he built a fortune by sitting quietly in a chair, reading, thinking, and saying no a lot. This is the story of the quiet genius behind Berkshire Hathaway, the man Buffett calls the abominable no man, because he never shies away from calling out stupidity, even Buffett's. This is the man who taught Warren to think differently, deeper, broader. And this is poor Charlie's Almanack, a 500-page treasure chest of Munger's best ideas, zingers, mental models, and life principles, all wrapped in a book that looks like a coffee table memoir, but reads like a playbook for building wealth, in dollars and in wisdom. A book that, if read closely, can quietly rewire your brain for the better. Let's dive in. Part 1. The man behind the curtain. Who is Charlie Munger? Before we unpack Munger's philosophies, before the mental models, the investing secrets, and the psychological judo, we've got to start with the man himself. Because to understand the book, you have to understand Charlie. January 1st, 1924. A baby named Charles Thomas Munger is born into a family that values education, discipline, and hard work. He grows up just blocks away from another Nebraska boy who would one day become his legendary business partner, Warren Buffett. The two wouldn't meet until much later, but their paths were already eerily parallel. The Great Depression hit Omaha hard. Soup kitchens, bread lines, bank failures. The world around young Charlie was crumbling. To help his family, Charlie worked long, grueling hours at Buffett and Son Grocery, a small but tidy store owned by Warren's grandfather, Ernest. His shift? 12 hours. No breaks. No meals. His pay? $2 a day, minus 2 pennies he had to cough up for Social Security. Because, as his boss warned him, socialism is inherently evil. Charlie learned young, life is hard, money matters, and you'd better learn to think for yourself. But while other kids were playing ball, Charlie was building a fortress in his mind. By high school, he was devouring books, not novels, but medical journals. For fun, he became obsessed with ideas, not just business ideas, but physics, chemistry, history, psychology. His heroes weren't sports stars or celebrities. They were Benjamin Franklin and Charles Darwin. Charlie once said, "If you want to get smarter every year, be friends with the eminent dead." He meant reading the works of history's best thinkers and letting their ideas shape your own. And that's exactly what he did. After high school, he went to the University of Michigan, where he majored in math and fell in love with physics. Not because he wanted to be a scientist, but because physics taught him something better: how to think from first principles. Then World War II called. Charlie joined the U.S. Army Air Corps and was shipped to California to study meteorology at Caltech. His job? Predict the weather. And though he didn't know it at the time, that strange little assignment taught him something profound: to approach uncertainty with probabilistic thinking, to prepare for different outcomes, to hedge, to anticipate. That lesson would later make him, and Berkshire Hathaway, billions. After the war, he returned stateside with a wife, a baby on the way, and a mountain of ambition. He applied to Harvard Law without a college degree. Now, most people would have been laughed out of the admissions office. But not Charlie. He had connections. Former Harvard Law Dean Roscoe Pound, a family friend, personally vouched for him. Charlie got in and graduated magna cum laude, top 10 in his class, and yet he wasn't satisfied. He practiced law for a few years in California, built a nice home, raised a family, but something was off. He once said, "Practicing law was fine as a hobby, but I realized the big money wasn't going to the lawyers. It was going to the clients. So Charlie did what Charlie does best, he thought. Then he pivoted. He left a promising legal career behind and bet on himself. In real estate development, stock investing, and business. Why? Because Charlie wasn't trying to get rich, he was trying to get free. I wanted to be independent, like John Maynard Keynes, he said. Money was just a tool. Independence, the ability to say what you really think, to work only with people you admire, to live by your own values. That was the goal. And that mindset, not greed, not ambition, but a lifelong pursuit of rationality and independence, would lay the foundation for everything that followed. His investing style, his life philosophy, and eventually this book. Poor Charlie's Almanack isn't just a collection of quotes. It's the inner blueprint of a man who built $1 billion mind by asking better questions, reading the best books, and always thinking for himself. Part 2. The meeting that changed everything. A Cold War is heating up. Alaska just became a state. Eisenhower is in the White House. And in Omaha, Nebraska, two of the greatest minds in modern finance are about to sit across from each other for the very first time. Charlie Munger, then a successful lawyer turned budding investor living in Pasadena, returns to his hometown to settle his father's estate. While in town, his old family friends, the Davises, decide to throw a dinner. Nothing fancy, just a gathering of smart people, old friends, and good food. But seated at that table, completely unaware of what the future holds, are two men who are about to ignite one of the most legendary partnerships in business history. On one side of the table, Warren Buffett, 30 years old, fast-talking, high energy, already managing his early investment partnerships, with a style shaped entirely by his mentor, Ben Graham, the father of value investing. On the other side, Charlie Munger, 35, more measured, a little older, a little tougher, a lawyer with a curious mind and a growing appetite for markets, psychology, science, and thinking differently. As the story goes, and it's confirmed in the book, within minutes, the two were completely locked in, dishes cleared, room buzzing, but Buffett and Munger, they were lost in conversation. Charlie's daughter, Wendy, later said, "It was like two ping-pong players suddenly realizing they'd been practicing with amateurs their whole lives and finally found someone who could smash the ball right back." Buffett would later say, "When Charlie started laughing at his own jokes, I knew I'd met a kindred spirit. And from that night on, everything changed." They didn't become business partners overnight. They lived in different states. They built their fortunes separately, each running their own investment partnerships. But they kept talking, constantly. Long letters, late-night calls, deep debates, mutual respect. Charlie pushed Warren, challenged him, and Graham ified him. You see, up to that point, Buffett was strictly a numbers guy, a Graham disciple who hunted for what he called cigar butts, companies that were statistically cheap, even if they were lousy. But Charlie came in with a new way of thinking. He told Warren, forget buying fair companies at wonderful prices. Start buying wonderful companies at fair prices. That simple shift, from pure quantitative investing to qualitative thinking, would change Buffett's entire approach. Together, they applied this to Berkshire Hathaway, a struggling New England textile company that, on paper, had no business being rescued. But instead of liquidating it, they transformed it, slowly, carefully, methodically, into a financial fortress. By 1978, Charlie was vice chairman. By the 1980s, the company was a capital allocation machine. Today, Berkshire Hathaway is worth over $800 billion, with holdings in everything from Coca-Cola and Apple to Geico, Dairy Queen, and See's Candies. And it all started with one dinner. There's a quote in Poor Charlie's Almanack that says it best. It was clear from that first meeting that Warren and Charlie shared not just intellect, but values. Humor, curiosity, and a deep, ruthless love of rationality. That dinner didn't just mark the beginning of a friendship. It was the big bang of one of the greatest financial alliances in modern history. Part 3, The Almanack. What is it, and why should you care? Okay, let's fast forward. What is this book? Why do people whisper about it in investing circles like it's some kind of Rosetta Stone for wealth and wisdom? Let me put it this way. Poor Charlie's Almanack is part biography, part investing masterclass, part philosophical manifesto, and part comedy special. Seriously, it's hilarious. It was compiled by Peter Kaufman, with Charlie's full blessing, and it's packed with speeches, anecdotes, mental models, zingers, and stories that span over 5 decades of Charlie's thinking. It opens with a biographical portrait of Charlie, from his early Omaha days to his time at Caltech and Harvard, all the way through building his fortune, raising a family, and mentoring generations of thinkers. Then it drops you straight into Mungerisms, the famous one-liners that people quote, like gospel. Show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. Invert, always invert. It's not greed that drives the world, but envy. It's like reading Confucius if Confucius was a Midwestern billionaire who liked Diet Coke, Costco, and destroying investment bankers with deadpan roasts. Then, the heart of the book, his legendary speeches. From the psychology of human misjudgment to a lesson on elementary worldly wisdom, to his epic commencement address at USC Law School. Each talk is a masterclass on how to think better in a noisy, complex, irrational world. Think of it this way. If Benjamin Franklin, Charles Darwin, and Oscar Wilde teamed up to write a guidebook for modern life, with footnotes from Warren Buffett and jokes from Johnny Carson, you'd get something close to poor Charlie's Almanack. It's dense, it's deep, it's hilarious. And it's dangerous, because once you read it, you can't unsee the nonsense in the world. The Latticework of mental models. Charlie Munger doesn't believe in silver bullets. He believes in mental models. A latticework of them, not just from one field, not just from what you majored in, but from everywhere. This, he says, is how the world actually works. Most people go through life using just one lens. The accountant sees everything as numbers. The marketer sees everything as brand. The politician sees everything as power. The influencer just sees angles for their next post. Charlie, he built something different. He built a mental Swiss Army knife. In Poor Charlie's Almanack, Munger explains that to make better decisions, in business, in life, in investing, you need to draw on a latticework of models from multiple disciplines. Why? Because no single discipline has all the answers. Reality is messy. It doesn't respect the lines we draw between physics, psychology, economics, and history. What you need is a latticework of mental models in your head. And with that system, the models hang together in a way that enhances cognition and avoids a lot of the standard errors of human cognition. It's like building your own mental operating system. And the more models you gather, the more ways you have to test reality, to avoid disaster and spot opportunity where others see nothing. So, what are these mental models? Let's break down just a few of Charlie's favorites. 1. Opportunity cost. Every decision costs you something. Not just what you spend, but what you forfeit. If you spend an hour doing task A, you can't do task B. As Charlie puts it, intelligent people make decisions based on opportunity cost. 2. Margin of safety. Engineering. Borrowed from bridge building. You don't build a bridge to hold exactly 10,000 pounds, you build it to hold 30,000. Why? Because life is uncertain. Errors happen. Weather changes, so always leave room for failure. Or, as Munger says, don't drive a truck that weighs 9,900 pounds across a bridge that says limit 10,000. 3. Inversion. One of Munger's all-time favorite techniques. Instead of asking what will make me successful, ask what will cause me to fail. Then avoid those things. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. 4. Confirmation bias, psychology. This one's dangerous. You believe what you want to believe. You seek out evidence that confirms your existing views. That's how people, even brilliant ones, get blindsided. Charlie's advice: fight your own ideas. Try to disprove them. Be like Darwin. Change your mind fast when the facts say so. These are just a handful. Munger's latticework spans dozens of models, from thermodynamics to probability, microeconomics, game theory, evolutionary biology, law, ethics, even literature. You must know the big ideas in the big disciplines and use them routinely, all of them, not just a few. Here's what's wild. Munger doesn't believe in being an expert in everything, but he does believe you should become functionally fluent in the 80-20 of each major field. Not to impress people, but to survive better, to solve problems others can't, and to think more clearly than the competition. Because when you learn to see the world through multiple lenses, the way Munger does, you stop playing checkers and start playing chess. You can anticipate the ripple effects, understand the incentives, spot the flaws, and most importantly, you don't fool yourself. That's the power of the Latticework. It's not about memorizing facts. It's about creating a mental map, a toolkit, to navigate the chaos of real life. And speaking of chaos, let's talk about the invisible forces that derail smart people every day. Bias, ego, emotion, tribal thinking. Charlie Munger is proof that you don't need to speak often. You just need to speak wisely. When Charlie talks, people listen, not because he shouts, not because he's flashy, but because in a world full of noise, Charlie drops truth bombs. Calm, piercing, unshakably rational. These are the lines that earned him a cult following. The mic drop moments at Berkshire Hathaway meetings. The off-the-cuff remarks that read like ancient proverbs with punchlines. Take a simple idea and take it seriously. Munger's recipe for success in business and in life. Complexity kills, he warns. Clarity wins. Spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up. This isn't a quote. It's a lifestyle. In Poor Charlie's Almanack, he calls it a gradual, lifelong dedication to learning. The best armor against life's misjudgments is a well-furnished mind. That's not a metaphor. Charlie actually builds his mind like a library, filled with mental models, guarded against bias and stupidity. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. This is Munger's favorite trick, inversion. Flip the problem, solve it backward. It saved him from more mistakes than he can count. Show me the incentive, and I'll show you the outcome. He once used this to explain the fall of Enron, the 2008 crash, and even why dentists recommend more dental work than you actually need. Charlie's basically Yoda, if Yoda read Barron's, wore Costco jeans, and had a 200 IQ. And yet, in all his wisdom, he's painfully aware of human folly, especially his own. He's known for his brutal honesty, especially about his own limits. At least when I was young, I wasn't a total klutz, he once joked at a shareholder meeting. He called himself a book with legs. Said his wife used to tell people he was perfect, but only if you don't live with him. He mocked pretentiousness, hated jargon, and once described marketing as Glotz's sugared, caffeinated water. Spoiler, that's Coca-Cola. But beneath all the sarcasm is a man deeply committed to truth. Unfiltered, undiluted. He doesn't care if it's popular. He cares if it's right. And that's the real power of Mungerisms. They aren't clever for the sake of being clever. They're sharp because they cut through illusion. They take complex truth and make them unforgettable. They're the mental sticky notes you carry for the rest of your life. Charlie didn't just get rich, he stayed grounded. He didn't chase yachts or islands or private jets. He lived in the same house for decades, drove himself to work, wore the same plain suits, preferred peanut brittle over champagne. And yet, behind the scenes, he gave millions to libraries, schools, and institutions of learning. Harvard Westlake School, the Huntington Library, Stanford, Caltech, even dorms at UC Santa Barbara and the University of Michigan, all designed by Charlie himself, by the way. He was a secret architecture nerd. He believed in education, in reading, in human progress, powered by wisdom, not wealth. Because for Charlie, money was never the point. I wanted to get rich so I could be independent, he once said, like John Maynard Keynes. That's the game Charlie played and won. Not the game of net worth, but of self-reliance. Of choosing who he worked with, what he said, how he lived, and what he gave back. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room, he said, but you sure want to be in the room with them. And Charlie built those rooms, in board meetings, classrooms, and libraries, for the next generation to sit in. Poor Charlie's Almanack is not a fast read. It's not a TikTok hack. It's not airport fluff or business clickbait. It's 500 plus pages of distilled wisdom, humor, discipline, brutal honesty, and a blueprint for living a rich life, not just with money, but with meaning. It teaches you how to think. Not what to think, but how to think. So read it, reread it, and then gift it to someone who thinks they've got life all figured out. Because if there's one thing Charlie teaches us, it's this. The minute you stop learning, you start dying. If this video helped you see the world a little differently, hit that like button, subscribe for more timeless wisdom, and share this with a friend who loves learning as much as Munger loved a good Costco deal. Stay rational, stay curious, and remember, the best thing a human being can do is to help another human being know more. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.